Good rainy Wednesday morning. We are thankful to be inside the production greenhouse this morning. Gonna do some gardening 101 with you with Dr. Ryan Walsh, our conservation coordinator here at the zoo. As you guys can see from the last time we were here, things have grown immensely. And we hope that you can hear us over the rain. But as I said, we are thankful to be inside today, but this is one of the happiest places here at the zoo. Seeing everything green and growing really just lifts your spirits. So as we get started here, let us know that you're here. Tell us who's watching today, where you're from, and we'll give a few shout outs before we jump into our morning announcements this morning. All right, let's see. Hi to the SEAL team, thanks for tuning in. Hi, Abby in Perrysburg. Hi, Kristen in Dundee. Good morning, Brenda. Hi, Hazel in Michigan. Hi, Gavin and Grayson in Kansas City. Hi to Athena and Caden. Hey, Kyler and Canton. Oh, hi, Paul, the wilds of Waterville. We're so glad you could join us today. Hi, Cheryl in West Branch. Good morning, Valerie. Sandy says it's beautiful. It is beautiful in here. It's actually a nice temperature. It's green. It's growing. It is the place to be on this rainy Wednesday. Hi, Callahan in Bellevue. Good morning, Kat in Toledo. Hi, Donna in Michigan. Hi, Zoe. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, Morgan and Blake and Ryan and Finley. Hi, Emily. Hi, Theo, William and Marcus. Good morning, Max in Michigan. Hi, Everett, Vita and Margaret in Michigan. We do have a lot in Michigan here today. That's awesome. Thanks for joining us today, guys. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with our morning announcements as the rain picks up even more outside, making us more thankful to be in here. So thank you as always for joining us each weekday morning at 10:30 for our Facebook Lives. We're moving all around the zoo, and we've been checking in periodically in our production greenhouse here with the conservation team. And if you guys have been here with us before, we are growing immensely. It's awesome to see everything here. And we're going to give you some gardening tips today and kind of talk through how to make things beautiful and growing in your yard. As always, we appreciate your guys' support. This time has been difficult for all of us, but we appreciate all of your donations. You can always donate through our Facebook Lives or go to toledozoo.org/donate. Our meals on the go, which we've been telling you guys about each and every day, are going amazing. We served almost 100 meals last night. Oops, that just tripped on me. That was fun. And where was I? We served almost 100 meals last night. You can still get your orders in for tomorrow. They're doing beef or chicken enchilada casserole and stuffed green peppers. They are delicious. It serves the entire family for $35. All you got to do is go to toledozoo.org/meals on the go, place your order, and then just swing by the Broadway gate and pick it up. Our staff will have it ready for you, and you can even add dessert and margaritas for the adults out there, so check those out. And yesterday we added zoo t-shirts. Thanks to Jute Mode's Here for Good campaign, they have graciously put on their website a Toledo Zoo Quarantine Crew 2020 shirt with $10 of each shirt coming right back to the zoo. So there are links on our social page to place your order for those. They're awesome t-shirts. They've got some animals walking across it. Really fun stuff, available in sizes extra small to 3X. So go ahead and place your order for those. We can't wait to see you all wearing them. We've already placed our orders. You'll see us wearing them too. And of course, our education department is still going strong with their virtual offerings, toledozoo.org/virtual, for all the ways you can stay connected with them too. They're doing animal tours, behind the scenes pet training, more horticulture and gardening. Truly something for everyone. If you haven't checked those out, go for it. toledozoo.org/virtual. All right, I think I got everything in there and only got dripped on a couple of times.
Do we have to go verify if they can hear us?
Yes.
And then can you tune out of your feed and tune back in?
Absolutely. All right, guys. The rain may be interfering with us just a little bit. Let us know that you can hear us, you can see us, and we will turn it over to Dr. Ryan Walsh, our conservation coordinator, to talk about Gardening 101 and how to put these natives in your yard, and some tips and tricks on how to make it look as beautiful as this does.
Yeah, and it's actually not as difficult. I know I've seen some comments on the previous ones that, some people have brown thumbs and they don't think they can grow them. Well, we pretty much have any plant that any person can grow. As Jake has previously talked about, these things grow natively here. So they grow without anyone's help. So sometimes you just got to step away and let the plants do their thing. And these plants are perfect for doing their thing. Probably the most important thing before you even get to picking out the plants is taking a look at what your area is. So I think when people first start getting into gardening, they say, okay, I know what my exposure is. It has 4 hours of light, 6 hours of light, and that's really important. You don't want to put a prairie plant in full shade because they're not going to do very well. But the other really important thing is the moisture content. So is your site really, really wet? Like on a day like today, is it a swamp essentially? Then you're going to probably want to go with plants that are from those wetter habitats. If you live out in western Lucas County and you're in pure sand, well, that's a whole different type. Maybe you put some lupin or some upland goldenrod because they really like to be dry. And vice versa, plants that are adapted to wet won't do well in dry, and vice versa.
Awesome. All right. So you have mentioned before, and Jake has talked about all the different kinds of milkweed, and those are some of the easier ones to grow, but some of the most beneficial for our ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're definitely rolling into that time of year where we start getting a massive number of questions on milkweed. So over here, I set aside, that's not a milkweed, we'll put that off to the side right now. Some of our different milkweed species. So Ohio actually has something like 11 native milkweed species. I think we have 7 here in the nursery. And why are we growing so many? Because going back to that point I made, there are different milkweed species that grow in different conditions. So once you figure out whether you have full sun or wet or dry, then you can decide on a milkweed that you want. Why milkweed? Of course, I think most of you know that that's the sole larval host plant of the monarch butterfly. And honestly, we've planted thousands of milkweeds out into the community, probably even more than that. And to our surprise, and I've seen this in my own house, as soon as you plant milkweeds, within a couple weeks during the summer, you start getting monarchs in your yard, and they'll even lay eggs on the plants. And you can watch the entire life cycle of the monarch right there in your own backyard. So we'll start off with probably our biggest seller and the most popular by far is the swamp milkweed. This plant, and I think Kim mentioned it before, will reach upwards of 4 feet or more. This is what we use to raise all of our monarchs that we release for migration. And the reason why this is the most popular with everyone is even though its name says swamp milkweed, it actually grows in normal soil conditions. So if your soil isn't too wet or isn't too dry, really honestly, this is the easiest milkweed to grow, and it doesn't spread around your yard. We do have common milkweed, which is right here. That's the one that you see growing on roadside ditches. We didn't originally grow this back when we started a couple years ago because we thought nobody's going to want that. And then people started asking for it. So we decided to start growing this, but I by far recommend the swamp milkweed because it won't take over your entire yard. Common milkweed will if it's really happy. We also have butterfly milkweed. That's right here. This guy will get actually only about up to here. This is what sometimes you can find in garden centers. It's got a nice orangish to yellowish flower. This I really only recommend if you have a dry spot. We have grown them in more heavier clay soils that stay wet, But really what tends to happen is if we have a really wet winter, it has a tuber underground that it comes back from every year. And if you have a really wet, cold winter, that's when the plant will die back. So dry conditions, absolutely go with this guy. Otherwise, consider one of the other milkweeds. And for some of you who are maybe more into gardening than others and want to try out something really unusual or rare, we actually have a couple that we're growing out. Grab it. Prairie milkweed, which is state endangered, but we actually get our seed source from not from the wild. It's a cultivated seed source, so it's completely legal, but it's a really cool plant. The monarchs absolutely love it.
Just a second.
Yep.
Try something. Okay, let's see how this is for a second. Go ahead, continue.
Just a second, guys. We are trying to fix some sound things on our end. We're like you, we haven't experienced this particular issue before, so we're trying some different things behind the scenes here. Give us just a moment.
Okay. Cool. Go ahead, continue.
Right.
Cool.
Keep going, Ryan.
The other one that we're really excited to offer a few plants of this year is purple milkweed. It's a really cool plant. It kind of grows like swamp milkweed in that it doesn't spread out, but it's got a really pretty purple flower. It's really rare. I think we're one of the only nurseries in the country to be offering plants this year.
That's awesome. And thank you everybody for letting us know that you can hear us. Ryan,
Good.
I apologize. Keep going.
No problem. And then the final one, it's still kind of a seedling, but all milkweeds kind of have this slow seedling phase, and then you come in next week and they're twice the size. This is poke milkweed. So even if you have a shady part in your yard, this one will be excellent for it. This actually doesn't like sun. This is more kind of a woodland plant, which is really unusual for milkweed. So even if you have a completely shady yard, you can plant some milkweed and attract monarchs.
All right. So we've talked about some good plants for starters for those people like my mom who tuned in before and said she has a really black thumb,
right,
which is so true. But how do you actually go about planting these? Talk to us about how to get them from the pot into the ground.
Sure. So I think people overcomplicate this. And the funny thing is, people tend to like baby the plants and then they come watch us working in the greenhouse and we're just kind of throwing stuff around, and you don't need to overcomplicate it. So you basically want to dig a hole about 1 to 1.5 the size of the pot that you're doing. So this is a 3 1/4 inch pot. Maybe dig a 4-inch hole and then go down about that deep. So
about
maybe
double.
an inch below the size of the pot. If you're planting a tree or something like that, a lot of times you just want to go with a rule of thumb, 2 times as wide, 2 times as deep, and you amend the soil and everything else. But with these, you really don't need to do that. So just dig a hole so when you put the plant in there, and I'll do this with in the pot often, you put the plant in there, the plant is slightly below the surface of the soil. So you don't want the plant above the surface of the soil. That's no good. The roots don't like to be up in the air. These aren't orchids, they're tropical orchids. But you don't want the plant too low below the surface because then it will suffocate the plant and cause crown rot. So dig a hole. That's about as easy as you can get. The next thing, you squeeze the sides of the pot a little bit and pull the plant right out. So this is what the material you'll get from us for the most part is going to look like. It's starting to approach being root bound. But that's actually what you want in a nursery setting, and what we'll do is eventually up-pot these if they're not sold. So this is a nice, healthy root system. White roots is what you want to see, especially these new white roots coming out. That's exactly what you want to see, a nice, healthy plant. But you can see some of the roots are starting to swirl around the bottom because it's in a pot. It runs out of room. So what you want to do, I'm not going to do it on this one, but kind of open up these roots. You're going to rip them a little bit, but that's not going to damage the plant too much. So you just rip it up a little bit just so that the roots start growing out instead of continuing to swirl in. Put it in the hole in the ground that you dug, cover it with soil, make sure the soil is coming up right about to where the level is. Maybe cover it a little bit so that this potting soil isn't exposed. tamp it all down, make sure there's no air pockets or anything in your hole, and then water it in really well. Now, one of the things that natives are so well known for is that you don't need to irrigate natives usually. They're adapted to our conditions. You don't need, they're very low maintenance. What I would say is, especially for the first couple months that you plant them, just keep an eye on it. Obviously on a day like this, you don't need to water your plants. But if we start getting drought-like conditions with a new plant that you just put in, you'll want to water it until it gets root established. So until those roots grow out into the soil, the surrounding soil. After that first year though, you're pretty much good to go. Worst case scenario with natives, the top dies back, but all those roots underground that I think Jake talked about how deep they can go, they'll stay alive and they'll come back next year.
And this is a great project to do with the kids while they're home, because it's very simple. They can obviously help you quite a bit with this, right?
Oh, absolutely. So I constantly have my 8-year-old out gardening, get his gymnastic activity that they assign him. They can dig holes. They can definitely plant plants because, like I said, you can't hurt these very, very easily.
Not even an 8-year-old, right?
Not even an 8-year-old. And the other thing is, I found my son's really good. If you point out what the weeds are, he'll go find every weed in your garden and start pulling them out. So.
Yep, it's a great activity to get the entire family outside doing something productive, and that's going to have beautiful results for you. You guys, look around at this greenhouse. It is so pretty in here. The green, the growing, the color. It makes you happy on a rainy day like this.
I'm going to try the mic again.
Okay. All right, Ryan. Jennifer wants to control common milkweed when it spreads all over your yard.
So basically, there's two options. You can use selective herbicide on the stems that you don't want. It's not going to shoot back to the original plant. Or if you're not comfortable with that, it's really just digging them up. That's why I don't recommend it for yards, because it will take over your yard. So probably best bet is just to dig them up where you don't want them.
And if you do use an herbicide, you want to make sure that you follow the label directions completely, correct?
Absolutely. So follow the label directions and have proper PPE. So that'll mean gloves for Roundup, long sleeves, and eye protection, and usually some type of mask.
All right. And Amy wants to know, how can we buy the purple milkweed?
I'm not sure what the status is online. It actually was online. It may have sold out, but it's on our website.
And that leads right into Erica's question of how they can buy these plants that you're talking about.
Oh, absolutely. So we have a great website called, it's at wildtoledo.org, and you can buy every single one of these plants unless they're sold out. And we've been taking pre-orders since the beginning of April. It's doing a bunch of business, and that also leads to, you can actually select your soil conditions, and it'll give you a list of plants that work well in your soil conditions.
And there are some other filters too for the sun and the color and all the different aspects of this, right?
Absolutely, yep.
Awesome. And Melissa wants you to recap for her which of the milkweeds is for shade again?
That is Asclepias exaltata, or poke milkweed if you don't speak Latin.
Oh, thank goodness.
And like I said, by the time you actually receive these plants, they're probably going to be about this tall. They shoot up pretty quickly.
And the plants that have been in here have been growing for about how long?
Oh, I think we warmed up the greenhouse in February, so terrible at time, but 2 months, I think, something like that.
And Ainsley wants to know, Ryan, how much do you love plants?
Probably too much. But I mean, I got a PhD in basically plants, so you know, whatever, it pays the bills.
Ryan is our resident plant guy,
yes,
so
yes.
if you have questions, now is the time to fire them away at
Absolutely.
him. He's quite good
I
about
have a
this.
bunch of ridiculous knowledge.
And Alex wants to know, how much do these plants cost?
Most of the plants that you're looking at here in the 3 1/4 inch pot are actually just $7. Some of the rare stuff that is going to cost a little bit more just because it's hard to get the seed, it's expensive to get the seed, things like that, or it takes a lot longer to grow. But 99% of what's in here is $7.
All right. And Cheryl wants to know, what kind of dirt should you use to plant the swamp milkweed?
You can just use, assuming you have just normal Toledo soil, you don't need to plant it in a special dirt. If you have, you know, like construction backfill, you can always just use some normal topsoil that you get. But honestly, planting it in the regular soil, because eventually you want it to get adapted to your soil type. So I always just recommend backfilling it with what you dug the hole with.
All right. And Alex asks, do any of these prairie plants grow in Michigan?
Oh, absolutely. The vast majority, if not all of these plants occur in Michigan.
All right. And
because plants don't recognize state borders, so there's a lot in common between those two.
And we've talked a little bit about regions as far as plants go can be a little undefined, right?
Yeah, it really depends what scale you're looking at. I mean, that's what it comes down to. But for the most part, Southeast Michigan and Northwest Ohio are almost always in the same region. And then, of course, we have different habitats within that region. So we have sand, we have the Great Black Swamp, and we have in between. So.
Yep, and out where I live, we have Great Red Clay.
Great Red Clay, that's South Toledo right here. It's solid clay. You can
Yep.
make pots out of it.
All right, Cheryl would like us to show her a flowering plant, please. She needs to see a flower on this rainy day.
He's actually got a flower. He's been shooting that all. Most of this stuff is just coming into flower.
Those are some pretty yellow ones there. What do we have?
This is called partridge pea. This is actually the only annual we sell. So before you buy this, we make very, very sure that you realize this is an annual. So that means, unlike all of the other plants we sell, this won't come back from the same roots next year. Now, the reason we sell this is because this particular annual sets seed very, very well. So basically, every time we've planted this, it comes back the next year. It's just not the same plant. It's all the seeds from the previous year.
All right, and as he said, that one is the only annual. All the rest of these are perennials.
Correct.
And will come back each and every year, provided you take good care of them.
Right, right.
All right, and Rowan, age 9, asks, how many plants do you have at the zoo?
Like me personally, or just how many plants does the zoo have?
Let's go with the zoo.
Oh, how many different types, or how many like individual plants? Because that's a lot of plants. I don't think I've counted them. We're at well over 1,000 plants in the museum tropical conservatory. Well over 1,000 different species. So.
And how about in here? How many different?
Oh, in here we have. I think our last count was 132 species.
So if we add all those together and know that we haven't taken in account of anything that's on grounds or in the prairie greenhouse or in an animal exhibit, we have thousands.
Oh yeah, I mean, one of the things that I wanted to mention, so in this greenhouse right now, there's 35,000 plants.
Oh my gosh.
So that should help it.
Wow, yeah. All right. And Cheryl asks, how do you get rid of white fly?
White fly. The best thing we've used for white fly is, well, there's a couple different things. There's some insects that you can buy online. That's actually what we use in the tropical conservatory because we have dart frogs. So there's some white fly parasitoid wasps that we use, and they do a really good job. If you want a more instant solution, the other thing that we use is called neem oil. It's an organic pesticide. It's actually just crushed up neem seeds into an oil. It has no effect on any animals or anything else. You spray down the plant with the white fly on it, and they go away essentially. It's completely organic, safe for pets. It's so safe for pets, we use it right in the dart frog exhibit. So.
All right. And Charlotte asks, do we sell herbs?
Wild Toledo does not sell herbs. I think we have sold herbs in the past out of the horticulture department, but I don't think there's any plans currently for that.
All right. And Samantha wants to know, do you have to have fertilizer on these plants?
No, and actually we encourage you not to fertilize. These plants are adapted to the exact conditions of our soil here in Northwest Ohio and whatever those nutrients are. We don't put fertilizer in the prairies because what that does is actually encourages weeds to come up. So if you just have all prairie plants, you don't need to fertilize.
And Connie would like to know what plants flower best in full sun.
That's a great question. Pretty much every single one of these. We're starting to work on our shade collection, and some of these will do well in part shade, but every single one of these will do fantastic in full sun. But if you want a very specific answer, rattlesnake master is great. Any of the asters and any of the coneflowers, or just gray-headed coneflower is great. Really, all of those are just going to excel in full sun.
Very nice. And April asks, do monarch caterpillars eat the milkweed, or should I plant something else for them to munch on?
Nope, monarch caterpillars will only eat the milkweed. That's all they'll eat. The adults will nectar on basically anything that you have flowering that produces nectar. So you want to plant other things. Don't just put milkweed in there, but definitely have a good amount of milkweed if you get a lot of caterpillars.
And Alex asks, what other animals eat milkweed?
Milkweed is really cool. It actually has its own little ecosystem on there. So there's a milkweed aphid, which a lot of people can't stand, but it's going to happen regardless. You'll know if you have them. They're bright orange. They're very colorful. And then there's a milkweed beetle or milkweed bug that will specialize only on milkweed. So there's like this whole ecosystem going on your milkweed plant that only works or only uses milkweed.
Very nice. And Cheryl says, do you have lavender?
No. So lavender is actually a Eurasian plant, which we only do North American, actually usually Ohio and Michigan natives here.
And Rebecca asks, do you sell roses?
No, we do not sell roses. Again, oh, actually, that was my knee-jerk response. We are currently propagating North American native roses.
Ooh.
So we have some in the Prairie greenhouse. We're propagating them. We don't have them for sale right now, but we will either by fall or next spring. So they will be roses that are native right here to Ohio.
Something to look forward to. Very
Yes.
cool. And Cheryl says, is there a plant in the greenhouse that produces red flowers?
Red flowers. So, yes, these questions are hard. I don't know where it's at, but cardinal flower is probably your best bet for that. As you can imagine from the common name, it kind of looks like a cardinal, and it is very bright red. They're best in wet soils, although I've grown them in my mesic soils, so kind of medium soils. It's done okay.
All right. And as we pointed out, if you are looking for specific things like that, a specific color, a specific light type, or a specific moisture level, you can go to wildtoledo.org, and we have filters for that. So you can select, I want something that flowers red, and it will give you all the options that we have.
Yep.
And again, guys, that is wildtoledo, all one word, .org, O-R-G. And we will post that in the comments here later, just so that you have that also. All right, Jim asks, how large should the milkweed plants be when you transplant them?
I guess it really depends on the species. So pretty much everything in here, even those little milkweeds that I showed, would be just fine transplanting them. Essentially what you want, if you're growing them from seed especially, you want them to get several sets of their adult leaves. When seeds first germinate, they have cotyledons, which are those kind of seed leaves, and they don't look anything like what the adult leaves look like. You want them to get several sets of their adult leaves, and then usually, in the case of natives, they're good to go.
All right.
Just got dripped on.
I know how it feels. All right, let's end today with talking about how people can get these, the availability to come browse the greenhouse, how they buy them, if they want them delivered, pick them up. Talk to us about how to get these plants out into people's yards.
Absolutely. So first, you got to go on wildtoledo.org. You can pick it out in the comfort of your home. I've been spending a lot of time in pajamas myself. You go on there, you place your order. When you go to checkout, there's going to be several days where you can either drive to the zoo and we'll load them into your car, There's even a delivery option. You pick your delivery and we will deliver the plants to you, put them on your porch, knock on your door, and so it's a no contact option. And then with some of the changes and the reopenings, we're actually a state licensed nursery here. So we are actually going to be open to the public also. We're going to follow all of the state regulations. We'll have a hand washing station. These sides on the greenhouse will actually be all opened up, and it'll be a limited number of people in the greenhouse, but those are the same days that we offer the pickup options.
And just to clarify, guys, that is just the greenhouse here that is going to be open.
Correct.
The zoo has not set a reopening date yet, but we are going to, as Ryan said, open this greenhouse because they fall under the Department of Agriculture, and the state license allows them to reopen with the greenhouses around the state reopening. And we are going to take every precaution to make sure that we can do that as safely as possible. As he says, the sides will come up. We will limit the number of people in here. It will only be on specific days at specific times, and all of that information can be found at wildtoledo.org. As for the rest of the zoo, as soon as we know more, we promise to pass it along to you. Like everyone else, we are waiting on some recommendations from the governor and seeing how we can do this as safely as possible. So please stay tuned, stick with us. We want to reopen just as much as you guys want to come see us. So we promise as soon as we know, we will pass it along to you. And we want to thank Ryan for taking all of our questions today. Now you guys see why he is my go-to guy for answers here at the zoo. You can throw him any question and he can come up with something for you. And obviously he's doing a great job with his staff in here. This place has grown immensely in the last month and a half that we've been visiting. It looks gorgeous. I hope that you guys will add these to your own yards, and feel free to, reach out. We'll be coming back to Ryan about every 2 weeks, so load up those questions. He'll be answering them again soon. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.